we're going to do a video today on finding one variable stats, specifically mean and standard deviation, if we have a data table, and also we'll do the same process with a data table where we have a frequency list. Okay, so here's the data that we're going to look at, and really we're not going to worry about cumulative frequency today. We've talked about before how cumulative frequency is just the frequency for every class but added up. So if we have a school grade of a 2, the cumulative frequency really tells us how many data values are equal to or less than that. So the way we get 43 is we take the 20 students that have a grade of a 2, but we also add the 23 that have less than that. Okay, but for today we're just going to specifically focus on this. Okay, and we're going to use one case, a simplified case, where this is all of our data, and then a more complex case where this is the frequency of our data. Okay, and in both cases we are going to find the one variable stats for that data. So we're just going to use these school grades first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, pretty easy, but you'll get the idea on how to do this. So I'm on the home screen. I want to make a list. Okay, so the way I'm going to do that is scroll down and move over and add this list in spreadsheet. Okay, so I'll push enter. Now I've got a list and I can put a bunch of data in here. I like to label all my data, and I'll show you why in a couple minutes. So I'm going to push the up arrow, go to the very top here, and just type in grades. Okay, and for this first example, we're just going to have the grades 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is our only data. Okay, so once I've got my data in, I'm going to push menu, stats, stat calculations, and I'm just going to select option 1, one variable stats. We have one list, so I'm going to hit OK, and now we have these options. Okay, so this is maybe the most important. This is where is your data. Now sometimes it'll pick the right place, but if it doesn't, you can click this arrow, or you can push the right arrow on the calculator, and you can select what you've labeled your data as, which I really like. So I'm just going to put grades. Frequency list, we're just going to keep as 1. All the frequencies are 1. You can kind of ignore these two. And then the first result column, this is just telling you where the calculator will put the results. So I never really change this, or very rarely. So I'll hit enter, everything's okay. Now, here's column B, and here are the results. So let's talk about what these actually give. Okay, X bar, this is our mean. So this is notation for our mean. Okay, so that's really important. That's always one way to get mean if you're allowed to use your calculator. Standard deviation, okay, there are two different versions of standard deviation. So there's S sub x and there's sigma sub x. Okay, S sub x is your population, is your sample standard deviation. Okay, and you can see in this formula here, I don't know if you can see, but the key difference is when you're doing your standard deviation calculation for that, you're dividing by the number of terms minus 1, n minus 1. So this is always going to be a larger value. If I hover down here, you can see that there's this notation sigma sub n of x. So in this calculation, you're dividing by n. So you're dividing by a bigger number, and your result as always is going to be smaller. Okay, so for us, and this is specifically for the class I'm teaching, we're going to just ask you to report this. Okay, there's some debate about whether or not you need to look at the specific context of the problems, but for now, right, always just report the population standard deviation. So in this case, we would take 1.708. Okay, so if that's all you wanted to see and you don't care about frequency lists, hope that was helpful. If we go through, I guess I'll go through the rest of this. The other nice thing that this one variable stats command shows is down here. You have the min, the Q1, the median, the Q3, and the max. So these are the numbers that go in your box plot. Okay? So if that's all you wanted to see, then hope that helped. If you're sticking around and want to see how to do this when you have a frequency list, right, then that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so I'm going to use the same data, but now we have a frequency. So this is really saying that we have 23 students that had a grade of 1, 20 students that had a grade of 2, 15 that had a grade of 3. Okay, so obviously our numbers are going to change because we have unequal numbers of students scoring these grades. All right, so the summary stats that we computed before were just for if we had 6 data values, and they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. So the way we'll handle that, I'm going to go in the same screen here. Okay. And I'm actually going to delete these and delete these. Okay, the way you can do that if you want to delete a whole column is you can move your cursor all the way to the top of the column and then push up one more time. When it's highlighted, you can just push delete and everything will go away. So I want to add some frequencies for these numbers. Okay, and where I had those was right here. So the frequency for 1 was 23. We had 20 and 15 for 2 and 3 respectively. We had 12, 10, and 8 for grades of 4, 5, and 6 respectively. So now, right, I have a lot more than 6 data values. I have 8 plus 10 plus 12 plus 15 plus 20 plus 23. So I have a lot more data values. All right, and this is convenient because we don't have to type in 1 23 times and make a huge column here. So let's do the same process. We're just going to make one change, okay? And actually, before I forget, I want to go up and I want to label these. So I'm going to push up twice, and I'm going to just call this freak grades so that I know that it's the frequency. All right. So now we want to actually run the stats again. So I'm going to push menu like before, stats, stat calculations, one variable stats. We still have one list. Okay, this is a little bit confusing, but our data list is only one. Okay, we'll handle the frequency in a second. So I'm going to still push OK. The X1 list. Well, this is where I like having the labels. That's my grades. My frequency list, right, is what's in column B. So I'm going to put that as freak grades. It's going to output to C, which is fine. Okay, and now we have it. So if we go over here and we look, let me go up a little bit more. So now our mean has changed. Before it was 3.5, now it's 2.886. Why is that? Well, let's see. Well, we had a lot of data, right? 43 values that were below 3. So that's going to pull the distribution down. And actually, we had 15 values that were equal to 3. So we have more values that are less than 3 than are greater than 3. Okay? So that's our mean. Again, here's our sample standard deviation. Here's our population standard deviation. And we see the same trend where the population standard deviation is always smaller because in our formula, which we haven't really talked about, but we will at some point, we're dividing by n. And that's a bigger number than the denominator here when we're dividing by n minus 1. So when we divide by a bigger number, our result is a smaller number. Okay? So I hope that was useful, and yeah, see you on the next video.